Leinster had a little bit too much for the Lions in the clash of the unbeaten sides. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Early on in this one, RG Snyman charges down a box kick on the edge of the line 22. Leinster win a penalty. At the next ruck, and Sam Prendergast strokes it over for 3 points to nil. Then almost a gift at the restart for the Lions. McGrath passes the ball off the back of Snyman. Ball goes to the deck. Lions get the loose ball first, surge forward, but then little bit kind of hasty from them, and they go off feet and they give away a penalty. A little bit more patience, and they might have, they were in a decent position. They were only maybe 7 meters out for the line, and good attacking opportunity, but just, didn't really have the patience, just got straight in there. Leinster then surge forward. Deegan, Baird and Doris all carrying well. Then to the backs, Henshaw with a nice touch in there, coming back for his first appearance of the season. And there's space on the left. They work it out to Keenan. He's got Gus McCarthy outside him, but he decides to step back inside. And he does get over the line, but he gets held up. It's a goal line dropout. Then we have a good carry from Eric Cronje. He's on for Kewan Horn. And Horn was off for an HIA. And Cronje gives the Lions some momentum. And Leinster get pinged. Woolhooter squares it up at 3 points all. Horn then doesn't come back from the HIA, and he was a big loss for them, I think, because he's been in such good form this season, and they needed kind of all of their aces, I think, to stand any chance in this one. Then Snyman attempts an offload out of a tackle, but it's, I think as he's trying to offload, a Lion's hand gets to it and knocks it back their way, but then Snyman plays it on the ground, so it's another penalty to the Lions. And then brilliant kick there puts the Lions into the lead at 6 points to 3, and it was just inside the Leinster half, I think. So it was a pretty good kick and cleared well clear of the crossbar as well. It wasn't even close in terms of distance. Leinster, to start, they're inaccurate. Sam Prendergast, as an example, hops a pass off Baird's shoulder as he's trying to cut him out and go out wide. And then Leinster kicking a lot, but it's straight down the middle, and it's just coming straight back from the Lions. They weren't in the first half, not really varying their kicking, so the Lions were keeping, 2 players back, kind of, central, not really covering the wings, because they could see Leinster just kept kicking up the middle. So I thought that Leinster could have varied things up a little bit and maybe gone wide a couple of times just to keep them guessing a bit more on that. Lions then working their way into the game, finding half gaps, elusive running, good territory, and clever kicking game from them as well. Lowe then, he tries to chip over the top, trying to break out from the Leinster 22. Ball goes into the Lions half. Lions get there first, and Leinster get pinged. They decide to go quickly from the penalty. Gus McCarthy knocked back 10. He tackles, so Horn points to the post from 56 meters out. It's definitely got the distance, but not the accuracy, and it's pretty well wide to the right. Lions then win a scrum penalty. Slimani going to ground, and they go up the line from that penalty. Nice position for them to attack from. Ruben Skuman knocks it on, though, as they look to work it into the 22. Leinster then stronger at the scrum on their own feet, and they're able to clear. I thought, in terms of Leinster scrum, probably one of their better scrumming performances so far this season. Did go away a few penalties, but got parity in a lot of the scrums, and maybe probably felt a little bit unlucky as well with some of the decisions on there. But what scrum doesn't feel like hard done by, honestly, when a penalty goes against them? From there, then they clear the ball. It's a massive kick from Lowe, and the Lions, I think it was Van der Merwe was back there. He decides to run it back. Big mistake, gives away a penalty. Leinster then Goes to the corner, but Frankie Horn gets up and steals it for the Lions. And, you know, if you're a Lions fan, you think, oh, brilliant, like, you know, danger averted. But Lions go back over their own line, and it's a 5-minute scrum to Leinster. Then there's a good carry from the back of that scrum from Doris. McGrath, he's a little bit slow, like, deciding what he's going to do with it. You know, the ruck is maybe 2 meters, 3 meters out for the line. So he gets dragged into the ruck, forwards take over, and then Van der Fleer gets over the line to score. Prendergast converts, and we're 10 points to 6. Then a big hit from Cooney, and it allows Lowe to get over the ball and win a penalty. Leinster go up the line into the 22, but that comes to nothing. We're at 10 points to 6 at half time. Decent half there from the Lions, and you know, need to remember as well that Leinster, they don't score that many points in the second 40, you know, and if you can get within a score at half time, you know, you have a chance to potentially cause an upset, especially if we can keep them quiet. You know, they love to do that kind of score just before halftime and just after halftime. But as the second half goes off, the amount of points that they score kind of, you know, kind of goes off a cliff a little bit. So at that point, I think Lions probably thought they really had a chance in this one. Lions then, they do actually start the half fairly well, playing with advantage. Jonker, he breaks the line, he tries a little chip just as the advantage is called over, and he's unlucky to knock on because Lions were in behind there. He could reclaim that. Leinster were in a bit of trouble. Leinster then, they look to have actually smashed the Lions in the scrum, and I thought the Lions are actually going to concede their first scrum penalty of the season, but Porter gets pinged for driving across the scrum, penalty to Lions. It looked a little bit harsh, but again, you know, I'm a Leinster fan, and also, you know, you have to take into account what I said earlier, that, you know, every scrum that concedes a penalty feels like it was the other team's fault. So the Lions then do actually concede their first scrum penalty. At the next scrum, Clarkson, you know, getting the plaudits for that one. Leinster then up the line for that penalty. Lions compete in the line out and almost steal it. I thought they competed really well, you know, defensively in the line out. Leinster then spread it. Andrew Osborne goes over in the right corner, but the whistle had already gone for a forward pass in the move. Good carry then from Osborne. You know, some good involvements from him, honestly, tonight. Leinster attack again. Nice little dab in behind from Prendergast. Lowe and Van Beek going for the ball together, and the Lions player just about gets to it first. Lowe, you know, as he's coming back, tells the referee that it's no try. We do have a team-out check that confirms that. Doris was looking for a slap out of play, but I think that would have been a little bit harsh on the Lions. They had to give him that. From here, then, we have a strong carry from Doris. Then Prendergast puts Van der Fleer through a gap. Leinster surge into 22. Lions are offside as they defend their line. Leinster elect to tap it. You know, they were talking about in commentary how Leinster, you know, have all the variations for the tap penalties, but it's been a long time since we've seen any of those variations from them. Like, most of them are just tap and the hooker takes it straight up, then they recycle, and then they try and put the variation in that part rather than the initial part, you know, where we saw in kind of Champions Cup stuff last year, maybe the year before from them. We're not really seeing it from them, and I think maybe they're keeping their powder dry and that kind of stuff for Champions Cup this year. But yeah, McCarthy just kind of taps and takes it up the guts. They recycle though, and then nice little pass from Van der Fleer. Doris coming on a lovely line as well, and then has the power not only to get over, but then to get the ball down, because there's three guys trying to hold them up. So finally, Leinster putting a little bit of daylight between the teams, converted for 17 points to 6. Van Beek then gets over the ball to win the penalty, and the Lions go up the line into the 22, but the throw is not straight, and it felt like at that stage their usual, you know, solid set piece began to let them down a little bit. Richard Creel then, I thought he did well to avoid Porter, you know, as he looked to run the ball out of his own 22, but then Rusher Blood for him, he used his kick out on the full. Good attacking chance from Leinster just outside the 22. Lowe then puts a kick in behind for Keenan, but it's just bobbling on the ground too much, and he's under pressure anyway. He knocks the ball on. Lions then win a penalty at that scrum, and they're able to clear. But you feel like they need to offer something in attack. They haven't really done so in the second 40. Then we have a penalty against Nohamba for lifting Ross Byrne in the tackle. Leinster go up the line into 22. Foley knocks on under pressure as Leinster were looking to attack. Leinster then get pinged, and Nohamba hits an absolutely superb kick from the penalty to bring them right up to the Leinster 22. But then they knock it on, and you feel like maybe that's a chance of losing bonus point gone from them. Leinster then win a scrum penalty with the clock in the red down the other end. They go to the corner, the maul, driving forward. They shed most of the Lions' defence. They're surging again. It goes to ground, and then Chris Evans awards a penalty try. 24.6 is the full time. So let's have a look at the stats before we have a quick chat about each of the teams. So let me pull them up here a second. Right, so first of all, on attack, 3 tries to 0 in favour of Leinster. No bonus points, so no 100% record in terms of getting those 5-point bonus point wins, but still they do have their 6 wins out of 6. But yeah, Leinster with most of the try threat. We look a bit more at the rest of the stats before we talk a little bit more about how the Lions attack. Though possession then 58% to Leinster, 42 for the Lions. So Leinster with a lot of the ball and making the Lions make a lot of tackles as well. And the Lions did look a bit leggy in that second half. Clean breaks then 2 for Leinster, 1 for Lions. So not really a game for like massive breaks. In defence, there were a lot of half breaks, and I felt the Lions found a lot of those as well. And you can see that in defenders beating 18 for Leinster, 17 for the Lions. But it felt like the Lions, when they're making those half breaks and stuff like that, they didn't quite have that little bit extra to turn a half break into a clean break, and then once you get in behind, then making the right decisions, having the guys there in support to score. It just didn't happen for them today. Offloads then 7 for Leinster, 4 for the Lions. I haven't looked at the stats, but I'm betting that RG Snyman was top of the offloads again in this game. But offloads didn't have a huge bearing on the game. Snyman, he's a brilliant athlete, and I love the fact that he is trying the offloads. But there was one that led to a penalty against Leinster that led to 3 points for the Lions, and then there was another one that he just offloaded to nowhere, as well. So it's brilliant, but he's got to be on the same wavelength as his teammates as well when he's doing stuff like that. Onto defence then, territory 65% for Leinster, 35 for Lions. I thought it was probably more even in the first half, but then the second half, Lions had very few entries into the 22 or even to the edge of the 22, honestly, and again, didn't offer that much. They were very much the defensive team in the second half. Number of tackles, 91 for Leinster, 127 for the Lions. Missed tackles, 17 each on that. So Leinster, 83% tackle success and 84 for the Lions. It doesn't seem right that they missed the same amount of tackles as Leinster, even though they made 30 more, or like 36 more, I think, and only have 1% more. So that take those percentages maybe with a grain of salt. I think their percentage might have been a little bit better than Leinster's compared to what they're saying there. Turnovers 1 then, 7 for Leinster and 6 for the Lions. Some really competitive play at the breakdown as well. Both teams trying to get in there and trying to win the ball, and made for kind of, even if it was a low scoring game, it made for an exciting game as well, especially in that first half. Kick retains then, 1 for Leinster and 2 for the Lions. And I felt like the Lions, in the first half, as I said, kicking game was smart, but I felt like they didn't use it enough in the second half, and that would have been something to maybe give them a little more territory. But it felt like with them, it wasn't quite backs to the walls, but certainly they were more in a defensive mindset than they were in the first half. Kicking success, as always, ignore it. Penalties conceded, 14 for Leinster, 9 for the Lions. So Leinster coming out on the wrong side of the referee's whistle, but still the right side of the score. But they would want to reduce the penalty count. Once you go into double figures, there is certainly an issue there that has to be addressed for them. Onto them players. So first off, successful carries. Robbie Henshaw with 10, played almost the entire game, coming back from injury. Would like to see him actually come off a little bit earlier, because there was, I think it was Tector who come on for him, and Charlie Tector definitely needs more time. Now Henshaw needed time in terms of coming back from injury, and he was in there beside Cooney making his debut as well. So maybe they didn't want to leave Cooney and Tector out together for that long. But I still think that Tector warranted more than a minute or two that he got at the end. Eric Cronje then off the bench with 4 successful carries for the Lions as well. So decent impact from him. Clean breaks then, 1 for Keenan and 1 for Jonker. Defenders beaten, Caelan Doris with 5. He's been immense this season, and his carrying game has always been there, but I feel like he's looking for the spaces, and then he's looking for the soft shoulders as well to make meters after contact as well. Cronje then with 5 for the Lions. For someone to come off the bench and play that well, is a mark of the quality of the player. I think meters then, Hugo Keenan with 97. Hugo Keenan, I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on him, but he hasn't looked as good for Leinster since he's come back from his sabbatical to go and play in the Olympics for the Sevens. It feels like there's a little bit missing there. Some of the way, like he's selecting what he's going to do when he reaches the line, almost like, maybe I'm imagining, but almost has like that Sevens mindset of, let's try and tie in defenders, and recycle and then try and break them down then, rather than looking for, felt like before he looked for space a lot more. But again, maybe I'm just reading a bit too much in it, but that's the way it feels to me. For the Lions then, Van der Merwe with 39 meters, but unfortunately for him, a chunk of those meters was when he ran the ball back and gave away the penalty that led to basically the try that kind of decided as a contest. Offloads then, actually it's not Snyman on the top there. It's 2 for James Lowe, but I know Snyman had at least 2 as well. So he must have been joint top with Lowe, but they put Lowe up there because maybe the guys doing this that just sick of putting RG Snyman up for that. And then Van der Merwe 1 for the Lions. Onto defence then, Josh van der Fleer with 10 tackles. That guy, he's maybe not getting the plaudits, because of how well Doris is playing, how well Deegan has started the season as well. But still, some really good play from him. He's a threat at the breakdown, and he really has improved his carrying game as well. Then we have Pretorius with 15 for the Lions. That's a hell of a shift from him. And then turnovers 1, Sam Prendergast with 1 for Leinster, and Jonker with 2 for the Lions. And we already talked about how well Frankie Horn went as well in the set piece, stuff like that. Thought he had a great game for the Lions. And the Lions centre combination as well, Jonker and Van Wyk. I thought those two guys look really good as a partnership there as well. But again, second half, kind of not as much of an impact on the game as it had in the first half. Okay, so let's quickly chat about both teams. So starting with the Lions, played really well in that first half, but really did lose their way a little bit after the break. When Leinster went up a gear, they didn't have a response. And, I felt like if they had got to halftime with a lead, it could have been a different story from them, because there were a few times when they kind of bent the line a little bit, but then didn't have that little bit extra, to turn that into a proper break and maybe a score. But listen, losing against Leinster, in the Aviva, it's not the end of the world for them. And they've got a first appearance in the playoffs to aim for at the end of the season. If they continue in the same vein as they have, for the first 6 games, I think they will make it there, and deservedly so. Leinster struggle at times in the first half, but they're able to turn it on when needed, and they just kind of eased away in that second half. No bonus point, but still 6 wins from 6. They've now used 47 players in those 6 games, and so far I think they've managed the squad much better than they did last season. But it's, when we get into the new year, that they've got Champions Cup, and then they've got players away at 6 Nations and all of that to contend with, then we'll really see, if they can keep that up, because I think they need to. They can't go back to the way that they've done in the last few seasons, where there's a very distinct, here's our Champions Cup team, here's our regular URC team, and then here's our knockout URC team. They can't be doing that anymore. There's got to be a bit more in terms of mixing the players in the way they've been doing it now, where you have these younger, more less experienced players mixing it with the guys who have 50 or 50 and upwards caps for Leinster and for Ireland as well, and that's really what's been so different this year, is that they haven't kind of just thrown out a team where it's only like the club players plus the youngsters and not many of the Ireland internationals. They really have balanced it very well, but that's going to be very tricky, I think, as they go through the rest of the season. But that's it from me. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.